Hello, welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Black Mirror Season 5, Episode 3, Rachel, Jack, and Ashley 2. This video is a part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Black Mirror. So I have to start with a spoiler warning for the episode Rachel, Jack, and Ashley 2. So if you haven't seen this episode, you will not want to watch this video, otherwise some things will be spoiled for you. However, of course, each episode of Black Mirror is independent, so I won't really be spoiling any other episodes. So as long as you've seen this one episode, you're fine. So anyway, those who watch my other two reviews on the other two episodes of Black Mirror may have been able to deduce through the process of elimination that this was indeed my favorite episode of Season 5. Which may surprise some people because apparently, generally speaking, is considered the worst episode of Season 5. In fact, you go on IMDb, it is currently the lowest rated episode of the entire series of Black Mirror with only a rating of 6.1. Now, while I very extremely strongly disagree with that, as I think clearly the worst episode of Black Mirror is the first episode of Season 1, the, national anthem, fucking a pig one, which I would say is only like a million times worse than this episode. But, that's just my opinion. I'm actually not too surprised of the negative reaction to this episode. And when I go and read a lot of the reviews, why people didn't like this episode, they say pretty much exactly what I thought they would say, that it doesn't feel like Black Mirror. And I will admit that this is the biggest departure from the rest of the series and the rest of the episodes of Black Mirror, and such that it has the most feel of a Hollywood big budget film, particularly the last half of the episode where you really did have to suspend disbelief a bit more than most episodes of Black Mirror, and it had that sort of that feel that a lot of like Hollywood films, like feel good, like romantic comedy or adventure films have, where they play a bit fast and loose with logic, which is, and I would say this is the episode of Black Mirror that does this the most. It's the one that has the feeling of a Hollywood film the most. I think previous to this episode, it would have been the USS Callister, but I think this episode definitely exceeds that episode in terms of feeling a bit Hollywood-ish rather than Black Mirror-ish. So I totally understand how a lot of people will be thrown off by that and not care for the episode because of that. And a lot of people just generally hate Miley Cyrus, and it's like, oh, what's Miley Cyrus doing in an episode of Black Mirror? She shouldn't be one. I've heard, like, when the previews for Season 5 first came out, I've seen a lot of comments and people just complaining about that. And I was like, wait, let me see the episode first. I'm not a Miley Cyrus fan either. I can't stand her music. I wouldn't go anywhere near her albums with the 10-foot pole, and I pretty much don't pay any attention to her or the publicity or any of the BS with like the Wrecking Ball song or whatever. Like, I just stay away from that. I don't actively despise her or hate it, but I have zero interest in her, and I have zero interest in her music. But just because she's in an episode of Black Mirror doesn't mean I'm going to completely just automatically discount it and be like, what the hell is she doing here? Maybe she's a good actor, and you know what? Watch the episode. She is. I would, in fact, go as far to say that she by far gives the best performance of Season 5. Hands down, in my opinion. I was completely blown away by her acting. I think she did an amazing job. I think it's a real height of the episode. And plus, the supporting cast, the other actors, they all do amazing jobs. Now, Black Mirror typically, every episode, I can't think of a single one episode that had really bad acting. Pretty much every episode of Black Mirror has really strong, good acting. In fact, that's part of the reason why I love this show so much. That's why I love the episode from Season 4, Crocodile, where a lot of other people didn't like that episode because I think the acting was just phenomenal. And here, I gotta say, the portrayal of the pop's star who's just being used by her aunt and is because it's more of a money making industry that's really beyond her. I thought that was played off very well, and I thought how her internal struggle of wanting to be someone different and feeling trapped. I think Miley Cyrus did an amazing job portraying that. But as far as the Hollywood feel to it goes, I don't mind it, honestly. I maybe thought slightly less of it because of the ending did get a bit silly, and as I said, it's not typical Black Mirror, but I don't mind Black Mirror departing. I've heard a lot of people, some people I heard even say, oh, this might be a decent movie, but since it has the Black Mirror title, it's not good because it doesn't have the Black Mirror feel to it. And first of all, I disagree with that. I agree that it is the biggest departure and has the most Hollywood feel to any Black Mirror episode, as I already said, but this does still have elements that make Black Mirror Black Mirror. And I disagree that just because that it would be fine if it wasn't had a Black Mirror label, but because it doesn't fit. I think that's bullshit. Honestly, just my opinion, because I think Black Mirror is continually breaking the mold of what it means to be Black Mirror while still staying true to its core. And I think that's precisely what the show needs to do in order to evolve. I think if every episode was just a simple formulaic and that's Black Mirror for you, then it would get a bit tiresome. And I would point to some season 3 episodes like Shut Up and Dance as an example of that. It's just Black Mirror being Black Mirror. It's not actually an original or very good. It's just doing the Black Mirror stuff to do the Black Mirror stuff. So I don't mind that they're taking it in a different tone, but the technology aspect of it is very in keeping with Black Mirror. In fact, some people argue it's too similar to other Black Mirror episodes, so it's kind of a contradiction. It's too Black Mirror, yet it's not Black Mirror at all. Doesn't really make sense to me. But so I think it's Black Mirror enough, but different enough to make it original and new. Now, some people may just not like the Hollywood style, and that's fine. That's totally understandable. Me, I don't mind it if it's done well, and in my opinion, this is an example of it being done well. Now, getting into the specifics of the episode, I thought this was a very strong story of a pop star. It had a lot of interesting commentary, like most Black Mirror episodes do, on the nature of social media as it relates to modern society. Now, a lot of episodes just tackle the technology side, but some episodes, like 50 Million Merits, is another great example. In fact, this episode was very reminiscent of that episode, although 50 Million Merits was more of a metaphorical. I think it's set apart, 50 Million Merits, from pretty much every other Black Mirror episode. It's another thing that was really original, because that episode was more metaphorical, rather than it wasn't supposed to be taking this is a literal place or a literal society. It's more of a metaphor, kind of like classic novels like Brave New World or Fahrenheit 451 is meant to be. You don't need to take it as this is where society will go, but it's more as this is a metaphor for how society is now. And this episode didn't do that. This episode was set in, a future that's not too far away, like most episodes of Black Mirror are. So that's what kind of sets it apart from 50 Million Merits. But it's similar in the regard that it tackles how pop culture and social media and the consumption of media, be it movies, songs, entertainment, how that affects individuals and how that affects society as a whole. And the message of 50 Million Merits I thought was fucking brilliant, because this guy's like, well, fuck this pop culture, I'm going to break away and be all angsty, and then the corporate machine ended up using that angst to their advantage, which is such a beautiful message. And I think the message of this episode, maybe not as strong, but it's still very strong in my opinion, of how the music industry and entertainment industry in general, but this focuses more on the music industry, especially like big, huge pop stars, like the Ashley O represents, the Miley Cyruses of the world, or whatever. I don't even know any pop stars. I don't listen to that music, but name your generic, huge, quadrillion-dollar pop star, and it focuses on how that's like an industry that goes beyond the individual. The individual becomes more of a symbol and has a brand, a label. And the thing is that in real life, people evolve, especially young people, and a lot of these pop stars like Justin Bieber, what have you, tend to be young. And when you're young, as you grow, you turn your tastes and the kind of person that you want to be evolves and becomes extremely different. And of course, this is antithetical to the pop music system that wants it to be a brand and a label. And this in particular, you have the character of Ashley O, whose brand is this poppy, feel-good, upbeat, you can do anything, like white bread symbol. But the actual person of Ashley O, as she grows up, as she evolves, as she learns, how the things kind of affect her, is becoming a different person. And she's becoming hardened and distant by the machinery, because she can see how this machinery that keeps her rich and keeps the money flowing is beyond her and sort of trapping her, and she's feeling trapped by it. And of course, her aunt doesn't give a shit about her personally. All she cares about is the bottom line, the almighty dollar. And I love the scene in particular where her aunt was with Dr. Feelgood, or I just call him Dr. Feelgood, or maybe Doctor Who, a reference to BoJack Horseman, if you heard it, just handing out drugs. And and the other dude who was like the music industry side of things. That one scene where they had with them, where they were like, "This is our industry. We're hanging on a thread here." What they mean by that is they're not making as many millions as they were making before. They're in danger of making less millions than what they are making. And of course, they capitalize it in every way possible through merchandise, which is where the Ashley 2 doll comes in, which I'll get into shortly, and all sorts of things. But they have that whole brand that is dependent on Ashley O being upbeat, feel good. Oh, you can do anything. And they can see that how the actual person of Ashley O is changing and not liking this lifestyle and becoming a different person. And so she hasn't put out any new music. And so their empire, the financial empire, is at risk because the brand doesn't compute to who the actual person is. And I love that. And I think that is a very strong, realistic commentary to make, particularly when you have the huge pop stars, that it becomes more of a brand, more of a business, more of a machinery. Who the individual actually is no longer important, and those who profit off of it don't really care. In fact, this could apply not just to major pop stars. It could apply to basically anyone in the music industry who's ever had any amount of success, and how that success tries to corrupt them. My personal experience, getting into my favorite band, so I sort of compared it to my favorite band, which is the Smashing Pumpkins. They became a huge alternative rock hit with Siamese Dream and Melancholy and Infinite Sadness, where it was, a huge grungy, well, they hate being called grunge, but it's just very, heavy electric guitar, heavy rock. And then after that, they go and release an album, Adore, which was very low-key, synth-heavy, very slow-paced, slow song, electronica, totally departure, and everyone jumped off of them. Everyone hated them, didn't like them, so they came back with a couple more albums, or one more, Machina, where they were trying to go back to rock, but the sound was still very different from what they did in Melancholy and Siamese Dream, that they no longer, this sound sounded a bit more 80s-ish and didn't sound more of like the 90s era grunge movement as the previous two albums did. So again, so even though that album was received better than The Door, it still was received poorly because people just wanted, they knew the band for that brand, and they just wanted that same sound of Siamese Dream and Melancholy over and over and over again, whereas Billy Corgan and the other members didn't want to do that. They just didn't want to be a machine pumping out the same generic stuff over and over again. They wanted to go let their creativity in the person that they have now become, which is different than the person, the angsty person. Maybe they're not angsty anymore. Maybe they found God, or maybe they found love, and they totally don't want to do that kind of music anymore. And so their sales drop, and that's just a response. And a lot of people in the industry try to fight back against that. Now, as I said, it's even a bigger deal when you have a huge pop star, because we're talking millions more dollars. That this is a huge industry that many people profit from. And to be fair, a lot of people could lose their jobs and their livelihoods if this one industry of this one pop star fails. So she becomes less of an individual and more of an industry within herself, which is pretty damn interesting. And I love how this episode deals with the difference and the contrast to that. So we like the scenes with her like playing on the piano, and her songs were really somber, and the aunt was sort of patronizing her. It's like, oh, that's a new sound. The lyrics are a bit of a departure, like trying to push her in that direction. And that, I love that. And I thought those things, again, were amazingly well acted. But like the stuff where eventually it leads to the aunt poisoning her, drugging her, whatever, and then hooking her up to the machine and put her in this artificial coma so they could just rip the songs out of her head. Again, this is very Black Mirror-y because it deals with weird technology. In this case, the technology to rip songs out of someone's subconscious, and how they were like, they sound the musical notes, and the song that they got from her mind was that same sort of somber song, but they just adjusted it to make it more upbeat and changed the lyrics to make it more brighter and happier. and I love that. This is so Black Mirror that deals with technology doing shit in that way, while at the same time speaking on how corrupt society is over this pop culture material, which to me very much harkens back to the same themes of 50 Million Merits. So I thought that was great, personally. Now, before I get into Rachel and Jack, I want to talk about Nine Inch Nails a bit, because I'm a huge Nine Inch Nails fan. I was really into their songs. They were probably my second favorite band when I was a teenager. And when I first saw the preview for this episode, and I heard the pop song, I was like, hey, that sounds a little bit like Head Like a Hole. And even when I first watched the episode, I was like, hey, that sounds like Head Like a Hole. But I thought it was only the part where she says, I'm going to get what I deserve, because it sounds a lot like the way she sang it sounded a lot like you'll get what you deserve. But it wasn't until after I watched the episode first time that I found out that pop song that Ashley O sings on a roll is Head Like a Hole. It doesn't just sound like Head Like a Hole. It is Head Like a Hole, but repurposed as a pop song, and the lyrics, of course, have been slightly altered to sound more poppy and happy. Like, I listened to the song all the way through, and my mind was blown. I was like, holy shit, this is note for note Head Like a Hole. It is the exact. So if you haven't realized this yet, I encourage you to go listen to the song. Your mind will be blown. That song, On a Roll, I'm on a roll, instead of Head Like a Hole, I'm on a roll. And like just they change the lyrics slightly. Instead of saying, God, money, I'll do anything for you, they say, oh, honey, I'll do anything for you. Instead of nail me up against the wall, he says, kiss me up against the wall. Like, and I love that. I actually think that's brilliant. I think I heard some Nine Inch Nails fans being offended by this. How dare Miley Cyrus cover Nine Inch Nails and they turn it into a pop song. Blah. I thought it was great. When I learned that, I was like, wow, that's amazing. Mainly because it's done in purpose of this story, which I like so much. So I didn't purposely, I didn't have a problem with it. As long as people don't go around claiming that the cover is better than the Nine Inch original, because that really pisses me off, but I will not get into that here. Anyway. So, I did like that aspect of it. And another thing I didn't realize, another Nine Inch Nails connection, is the song that she's creating on the piano that's like more somber. It's like See the Animal in the Cage. That's actually another Nine Inch Nails song. That's the song Right Where It Belongs, which wasn't as well known of a song. It's from, I think it was from the 2005 album With Teeth, and it wasn't released on the radio the way Head Like a Hole was. Which Head Like a Hole, I think it was from like 90 or 88 or something. Maybe 90. But anyway, so yeah, the song she was performing on the piano was actually another, and I totally didn't recognize it at all when she was playing it, because she plays it very differently, and I actually liked the way it sounded, to be honest. I thought it sounded really cool. And then of course later on they rip that song from her mind, and it is the song Right Where It Belongs from Nine Inch Nails, but they do the same thing that they did with Head Like a Hole, is that they change the tune to make it sound more poppy, and then they change the lyrics. And I didn't notice this the first time around, that they actually changed the lyrics as well, which I think it's a bit of a stretch to buy that they could just press a button and the lyrics would all of a sudden be happy. But again, this is suspension of disbelief here. But I thought that was so, it was, and then they play it at the actual performance. We have Ashley Lee Eternal, which is the hologram thing. It was huge. They're basically playing a pop version of Right Where It Belongs. They just did the same thing they did with Head Like a Hole. They just changed the lyrics to make it sound more happy, which I like. I actually think that's cool. And then of course, they actually, once Ashley turns into, the big grunge rock star at the end of the episode, she actually does perform Head Like a Hole. And here's an interesting thing to note, is that apparently in the Black Mirror universe, or at least in the universe of this episode, Nine Inch Nails don't exist. So that's an interesting note. I have to see, like, there's other bands they reference that exist, like they reference Pixies and Sonic Youth and other bands like that in this episode, but apparently this is a universe where Nine Inch Nails never existed, because they're specifically not saying she's stealing these songs, that she's plagiarizing another band. They make it clear like that Right Where It Belongs songs ripped right from her head. So that was the stream of consciousness. You could say, it's because her subconscious remember hearing the song or whatever, but I don't think that's what we're getting at. I think they're getting at the Nine Inch Nails do not exist in this universe, because at the end, when she was playing Head Like a Hole, she specifically said, this is a song I wrote about my aunt. So she wrote Head Like a Hole in this particular universe. And by the way, I've heard that Trent Reznor gave his blessing for this, obviously, and that he was actually very happy with what they did with his music in this episode. I am too. I actually gotta say, I like the Miley Cyrus cover of Head Like a Hole. Again, not as good as the original. No Nine Inch Nails cover could be as good as the original, but again, won't get into that. So now let me get into Rachel and Jack. Now this part of the episode was I think had the more Black Mirror feel to it, and people were more happy with this side of it. In fact, I've heard some people say that the first half of the episode was really good, but then the second half went to shit. And I will say the second half did get a bit more silly. The first half focused more on the characters of Rachel and Jack, and I thought these were really well fleshed out characters, and I love how the episode was split between them. That wasn't all just about Ashley O. That actually showed what her fan base went through, and of course, the direct thread here was the Ashley 2 doll, which was very interesting. And I love how this part of it they did kind of play it a bit more realistic, because when Rachel went to perform at her talent show, they could have had it where she succeeded and everyone loved her and it's like, oh, this is so great. That would have been very Hollywoodish. But instead they kind of went a more realistic route, which I thought was very good for the character story, is how she fucked up and made a fool out of herself. So it kind of shows how the Ashley 2 doll was very simplistic attitude. It's like, oh, you can do anything you like. Yo, you're great. You should give it a try. It shows the naivety, shall I say, of that mindset of that. Oh, you can do anything you like. You're special. You're great. Because that's not really how life goes. And I think that is a lot of real life experience of people saying, oh, you can do it, believe in yourself, and it doesn't work out. That is real life for you. And I like it. And it also shows, because we later learned, of course, that the Ashley 2 doll has the whole entire consciousness of Ashley O, copied into this machine or doll, whatever you want to call it. But they have a limiter on it, so only 4% of it is active. So that's the 4% that is inside of her that is very naive. I think that's important because it shows that if someone was using their entire brain, was really thinking things through and not being simplistic, that they wouldn't, tell Rachel, oh, go and do it, you'll be great. And it makes sense that this Ashley 2 doll would be giving bad advice, because it has a very limited view of the world, a very naive view of the world. And I think they did a really great job getting you to relate with the character of Rachel and her sister Jack, because especially like they portrayed Jack as someone who's very angsty because she lost her mother, and that really negatively affected her, where I think Rachel was a younger sister, so it didn't affect her quite as much, but she still had self-esteem issues, so it affected her, but in a different way than it affected Jack, who was more of like closed herself off, whereas Rachel was more depressed by the fact that she couldn't make any new friends or anything like that. But she found a friend in the Ashley 2 doll, but as I said, it ended up being a bad influence on her. And so Jack could see this, and the way Rachel, after she embarrassed herself, she's like, I can't believe I let Ashley 2 down. And I love how Jack actually didn't respond to that. Instead of saying, what the fuck are you talking about? Let Ashley 2 down. She just looked at her like, what? Instead of actually saying anything. And I love that. I think the absence of dialogue can be more powerful than actually having the dialogue there, because you don't need the dialogue, because that's an outrageous statement. I can't believe I let Ashley 2 down. And to see the look on Jack's face, I think that was priceless. And by the way, I gotta say, I love the actress who played Jack. She looks so, the entire time, I'm thinking how familiar she looks. I'm certain I've seen her before. I am so certain. But I looked her up on IMDb, and I didn't really see anything that I would have really recognized her from. The only thing I could have recognized her from is Sharp Objects, which I don't remember very well. I wasn't really that into that show, and she wasn't that main of a character. And the only other thing is an episode of House that came out like 7 years ago or 8 years ago. So maybe that's where I'm remembering her from, but it's been such a long time I can't remember. But regardless, I think she does a really good job of portraying it, and I love how how they did that and how they developed these characters and how this led her to hide the Ashley 2 doll. Now here's the thing. I watched a review that said this, and so I thought, oh, okay, this was the case, until I went back and watched this episode a second time, and this wasn't the case. So I thought it was the case, and this is what that other YouTube video said, is that that Jack went and hid the Ashley 2 doll, and then, Ashley O goes into a coma, and then so they recall all the dolls, and the reason why her doll wasn't recalled is because Rachel thought Jack had thrown it away. And then later Jack retrieves it from the attic after all the other dolls had been recalled. That would make sense that's why Jack and Rachel were the only ones who were able to unlock the full potential of the consciousness, but that's actually not the case. I watched the episode again, and Jack goes and retrieves the doll immediately after it's announced that Ashley O is in a coma. So, and later when they say that they discontinued the doll from sale. That's their exact words. They didn't say recall. So they didn't actually recall the Ashley 2 doll. So as far as that goes, it leads me to believe that anyone who had an Ashley 2 doll didn't have to give theirs back. And so they just stopped selling it so people couldn't acquire more Ashley 2 dolls. And also, like, if they had recalled, then Rachel would have had hers, because there was, as I said, there was no time difference. As soon as Ashley O went in the coma, Jack went and gave it back to her. So if they did recall it, then Rachel would have given her doll back, just like everyone else. But they didn't recall it, so that does actually make me a bit harder to believe that Jack and Rachel were the only people. Theoretically, every single Ashley 2 doll had the potential of the entire consciousness of Ashley O, but Rachel and Jack were the only ones who just happened to unlock. If there was a doll like this, like, there would have been hackers, they would have cracked the code, there would be, like, things on the internet that would give you instructions, especially it's pretty easy. Now, granted, they used their father's technology, which he was using to create his, rodent killing stuff, which is, that part of the aspect of the episode was a bit silly. I don't know about that. But, so they used his technology, so granted, maybe you need some special technology in order to unlock it. Maybe not anyone could do it, but Jack and Rachel, I think Jack did in particular, she wasn't shown as a computer genius. She wasn't shown as having this, huge technical know-how. She just happened to have access to her father's computer. So it seems to me that it would not be that hard. I mean, maybe not everyone would be able to do it, but there'd be some hackers, computer genius, and even some shit on the the dark web, or like shit going around. Oh, you can unlock and maybe, I don't know, for all I know, maybe other people have. To be fair to this episode, maybe it's not saying other people didn't do it. Maybe some other people did unlock it, so there's a bunch of Ashley 2 dolls acting like the real Ashley O. They just maybe happen in France or Russia or England or someplace that wasn't anywhere near LA to actually do something about it, where they happen to be in California, so they could actually go and do something about it. Maybe, I don't know if I'm being fair to this episode, but I still find it a bit hard to believe that it was that easy to unlock the doll. I mean, the recall thing would have been a really good way to get around it, but as I said, I went and watched the episode again, and that's actually not the case. But, suspension of disbelief. I think the scene where, and I remember seeing this from the preview, and this was what intrigued me about this episode, but the scene where they awake Ashley O, and she's like, get this fucking cable out of my ass! Like, I love that. I can see how this isn't exactly the same tone or same style, same flavor as other Black Mirror episodes, but I don't care. I love that. I think it really worked. I think that was absolutely great. And I heard someone like who was complaining about these negative reviews saying that, oh, the second half of the episode turns into a Disney movie. What do you want, a Disney movie? I personally have never seen a Disney movie where there was a small little inanimate object screaming, get this fucking cable out of my ass! I don't know what kind of Disney movies these people are watching, but I haven't seen. And I love how I love the use of swear words. I'm sorry, but I gotta say that. I love how once they unlocked the real Ashley O's personality, that she was saying, it's just swearing right and left, and that fucking bitch, blah, 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 blah. Like, it felt true to the character, and it really went a long way to portray that the difference between the persona, the brand name of who they were selling Ashley O to be, which was actually, ironically, 4% of the actual Ashley O's personality, the difference between that simplistic brand version of Ashley O and who the actual real person was. And I think that was brilliant. Now, the excuse that, it was easier for them to just download an entire consciousness and throw a limiter on it than it was to just download part of her consciousness and put it on the doll. Yeah, I don't know if I really buy that. That seems another suspension of disbelief is necessary here in order to push the plot forward, but I'm not too hung up on it. I mean, I suppose it's possible. If it was, hypothetically speaking, cheaper for them to do it that way, then no doubt that's how they would do it. I just have a hard time believing that it would actually be cheaper for them to do it that way, but whatever. I'm not a tech wizard. Maybe it would be. So anyway, so that was absolutely out of the scenes where they have the Ashley 2 doll on the dashboard and they're driving to LA, and I love these scenes. That's why I don't mind that it gets a bit crazy here. And this is where people are saying it gets too Hollywoodish. And to be honest, especially the part that was most Hollywoodish to me was Jack going in the house posing as a inspector and talking down to that huge ass, that giant bodyguard guy named Bear, and that she's able to just like, is this bread box certified and shit like that. Like, that's not realistic in the slightest, but that felt very Hollywoodish. And of course, the whole thing with them going to, having the car chase and the car like busting into the stadium and Ashley getting out and giving the middle finger and the young going, fuck it. Like, that felt like an Adam Sandler movie or something. That was very Hollywoodish. But I don't mind because I love those scenes. I thought they were hilarious. They were vintage. As long as I can understand how, since it's the Black Mirror episode, people are expecting the Black Mirror tone, and then they suddenly get this tone and how they would be thrown off and not like it. But I personally think you just need to go with it. And that's just how I feel personally, that I just went with it and say, look, they're doing something different for this episode. I'm going to go with where they're going. I'm going to suspend my disbelief more to see where they're going with it. And I love it because of what I'm saying about the characters being so well developed, the commentary on how social media affects life, which is something I'm very interested in, how well that's portrayed in the messages, and just how perfect everything comes together. I'm willing to go with this Hollywoodish feel and suspend disbelief where it needs to be suspended, because I just think overall the whole story here works. So, and then the ending, that also felt a bit Hollywoodish to me, but I loved it. It was a really feel-good ending that had me smiling and laughing, that Ashley and I didn't even notice this the first time I saw this outside the venue, the rock venue where she's playing Head Like a Hole. It says Ashley fucking O. So that's her new name. I don't know if she could get away with calling herself that. Of course, they didn't completely spell out fucking, like they left a few letters out, but it basically just said fucking O. But anyway, and how she was playing Head Like a Hole with Jack on stage, and then you have Ashley in the bar with the little Rachel at the bar with the little Ashley 2 doll, like with the satanic symbol written on it, like rocking out. It's just, I'm sorry, that was hilarious. But it was very Hollywoodish, especially how her dad was still there, like trying to sell the mouse traps to the bartender. Like, that's a bit silly. That's a bit too stereotypical Hollywoodish. Like, oh, look, here's all the main characters. And how they had those other two, like, fans of Ashley O, like, storm out and be upset and cry and be like, oh, that was horrible. I actually felt bad for them. I don't know. That felt very silly and Hollywoodish to me. But I think the point of that was, though, is to show that Ashley O needed to satisfy herself first and not worry so much about pleasing others, that she needed to be happy first, and that this being, this rock grunge star, whatever, is what made her happy. It felt true to who she really was, regardless if it disappoints or upsets other people, that she needs to worry about herself first. And I totally agree with that. And I think another thing that's kind of unspoken is that we're doing this, becoming Ashley fucking O and playing Head Like a Hole, which she wrote in this universe, as I said, is not going to make her as much money. She's going to lose a shit ton of money. But I like how she doesn't care. And in fact, that's why the song Head Like a Hole is a perfect fit for this, which is, I'm sure, why they chose it, is because the whole song is about not succumbing to the allure of money, and how money, the desire, the need for money, controls people and controls the music industry and controls people's lives. That's what the whole song is about, God, money. And that's why she said, in character, she said, I wrote the song about my stupid aunt because her aunt was totally controlled and driven by money concerns. So it's making it clear that she no longer cares. Like, she doesn't have to be this bajillionaire as long as she's doing what makes her happy. Which you might say is a bit of a kindergarten-ish moral, but I liked it. I thought the way it was portrayed in this episode really worked, and I'm sorry, I did love listening to that cover of Head Like a Hole. I did think it was very good. But if I was going to point out one downside of the episode that I was a bit disappointed with, it would be the Rachel storyline, because I feel like for the first half of the episode, we were very closely following Rachel, like she was the main character. But then later in the episode, she kind of got pushed aside to focus more on Ashley O and on Jack. In fact, Jack had more of a character arc where she, wouldn't play her guitar in public, and it ends with her having the strength and the courage to play in public. And she actually plays it with Ashley O, the person she thought was silly, but she, found out that Ashley O was a real person. Whereas Rachel, as I said, we focused on her the most about how she's shy, low self-esteem, and how the Ashley 2 doll was giving her bad advice. I don't think we got enough resolution to her character story, or to see where she was going. I think we could have gotten a little bit more. I think it was implied that the Ashley 2 doll that is now actually Ashley O, because the limiter was taken off, is going to be her permanent friend, because they showed her rocking out at the bar with her. So she does now have a friend. But I think I need a little bit more than that. Like, how does that affect her? How is that a positive outcome for Rachel? Like, how does that give her self-esteem? How is her life going to be better now because of the events that what happened? I just think we need a little bit more, because, as I said, at the start of the episode, it was entirely focused on her, and she seemed to be the main character, but then she kind of seemed to drop off towards the end. They focused more on the other characters. I just wish they would have given us a bit more payoff to her. But other than that, I gotta say, I really like this episode. I don't know, maybe it's just my opinion. Maybe I'll, if you disagree with me and you think this is the worst, this atrocity to have Miley Cyrus on Black Mirror, I can understand that, but I personally didn't see it that way. So my rating for Rachel, Jack, and Ashley, 2 out of 10, is a 9. Excellent. I wouldn't say, I'm not going to give it a 10. I wouldn't say this is one of the best episodes of Black Mirror, because it did get a bit silly. Like, the silliness towards the end was a bit much, so I can see why that would interfere with some people liking this episode at all. And there could have been a bit more payoff with Rachel, as I said. But other than that, I think this episode was actually brilliant. I thought the acting was top notch. I thought it was very strong Black Mirror themes of how technology can be used and the effects that technology has and the driven for money has on pop culture and society. Like this was very reminiscent of 50 Million Merits to me, which is one of my favorite episodes of Black Mirror. So I actually quite enjoyed this. So I thought it was the best episode of season 5, in my opinion. Anyway, that is it for my review of Rachel, Jack, and Ashley 2. So now I'm actually going to, since this is my final review of Black Mirror Season 5, I'm going to go ahead and give my rating for Black Mirror Season 5 as a whole. So my rating for Black Mirror Season 5 as a whole is an 8, extremely good. I think, all in all, as I said at the start of my first review of Season 5, that I think Season 5 is probably one of the weaker seasons of Black Mirror, and I think a lot of that does have to do with the fact that there were only 3 episodes. But I don't think it wasn't a disjointed season as other seasons were, because it was all straightforward, pretty good. There were no bad episodes, even though I thought Striking Vipers was not quite as strong as some of the other Black Mirror episodes, which is funny because I've learned later that a lot of people, that was their favorite episode of season 5, which, as I said, I always say people always have vastly different opinions on Black Mirror episodes because it all applies to different mindsets. And so this is just my personal opinion. You may have the exact opposite opinion of me, and that's perfectly fine. That's what makes this show so great. But to me, this season 5 was not quite as strong as season 4, which remains my favorite season of Black Mirror. And it wasn't as strong as Bandersnatch, which you could consider part of season 5, but it's not really. I heard originally that was supposed to be the 4th episode of season 5, but they decided to make it into a movie instead, which I actually love. I love that they did that. I love Bandersnatch. If you considered Bandersnatch part of season 5, then that would just really elevate it to be one of the best seasons of the show. But since it's not, I would say this is lower tier. I don't want to say weaker because it's still a good season overall. As I said, there were no bad episodes in this season. Some were just kind of not as overwhelming as I would like to. And anyway, that is it for my coverage of Black Mirror Season 5. Thank you so much for watching this. If you haven't seen the other 2 videos I did on Black Mirror Season 5, I would encourage you to check that out. Also, check out my channel as I continue to do videos on other shows like Star Trek, The Expanse, Lost, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.